Baruchim Aboim B'Shem Yirgin Shir Torah. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's shir from Rabbi Yaakov that's Mishlita, the topic of Hagia Liyodei Chayfet She'enu Shaloi. This is not mine. What should I do? I have the great tzchus of sponsoring a shir called Yirgin Shir Torah at 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com. Rav Smith.
I was once walking on a very cold Shabbos morning after davening, and I saw someone walking without a coat. So I wanted to wish him a gezunden zuma as a subtle way of giving a mussad that you don't, kol b'dei shemaim chutz mitin mapachem. So he must have read my mind, and he says, don't worry, I came to shul with a coat, but someone took mine and left me his, and I was told I can't wear his coat if he took my coat. So that very much attracted my interest to learn the sugya of the chalful kelev, a question that comes up often. Someone took your coat, someone took your mikveh bag, right before mincha about to start davening, and your hat is not there, someone left his hat there. We had a shayla, someone was running out to the bathroom right before Ne'ilah, and he wanted to run back to daven Ne'ilah. Someone took his tallis and left their tallis there. Could he wear someone else's tallis? So the common denominator, we're not talking about a shavas aveda, it's not a lost item. We're not talking about a ganef. But you have someone's item, what are you supposed to do with it? Can you use it temporarily? You need a coat, you need a tallis for Ne'ilah, you need a hat for mincha. So the truth is, so far you're okay. You didn't take his chayfetz. But here's the point that's important. If you take his chayfetz and you use it, even if you don't intend to steal, there is still a problem. And that's the well-known Gemara in Bava Basra Daf Peiches, Shoyel Shalai Midas Gazlinhu, which means very simply, if you take someone's item and use it without rishus, even if you don't steal it, but using someone's item without rishus, Chazal said it's gezeilah. And this is quoted twice in Chayshim Mishpah, Shin Nun Tes Hey, Shin Samach Gimel Hey. In other words, we say, I'm not stealing it, I'm just borrowing it. But Chazal said, Shoyel Shalai Midas Gazlinhu. And I had a friend of mine, we both were growing up together, and he said he would sometimes say something, and his father says, that's not true. He goes, no, I'm not lying, I'm joking. So the father says, don't say you're joking, say you're lying. If you say you're joking, so you don't feel bad. If you say you're lying, you feel bad. Chazal was saying, don't say that I'm just borrowing someone's chayfetz. Say I'm stealing it, because taking an item without rishus is geneva. We always hear that expression, Yenim's pruta, someone else's money is sacred. I just heard the other day, Rabbi Ganachowski Zechariah Levrach saw some children playing pickup sticks. To refresh your memory, you have to pick up the stick without moving the other ones. And he got all excited. He goes, oh, das is a Yiddish Shaleben. The person looked at him, Yiddish Shaleben? He goes, yeah. B'daf nemen deine und nicht onrein Yenims. Take your own and don't touch someone else's. That's pickup sticks, but that's life. The point is that in life we have to be careful with Yenim's apruta. And the emphasis is a lot to say, but I have to make one point before we go to halacha l'maisa. Imagine you get a frantic phone call, someone says, I need a psak in 15 seconds, hurry. Go, okay, no. So I'm driving out here in Muncie in some suburban area. I have 50 Yiddish kinder on my bus. I lost control. The bus is going over the cliff. So you go, no, what's the shayla? You only have 10 seconds left. What's the shayla? If I make a quick left turn, I will steer it onto someone's front yard and I'll damage 3 of his tulips. What should I do? So you're probably tempted to say, just go over the cliff. We don't need you. But this shayla is a beferish pasuk in Shmuel and a beferish Gemara. The Gemara in Bava Kama Daf Samach Amid Beis darshan the pasuk in Shmuel Beis Chav Gimel Tezvav. Vayisavu David vayeme mi ashkeni mai mi bor beis lechem asher b'sha'ar. David was fighting a war with Eden against the Pelishtim, and it was grave danger for Klal Yisrael. And mitamol, David has a taiva. Doesn't even sound right. David had a taiva. He wanted water, and he sent his soldiers to go and put their lives in danger to get water for him. Can't be. So Chazal have a different reading of the psukim. David had a taiva, he had a shayla, a maim ala Torah, and he sent Asher Bishar to the Sanhedrin. The Pelishtim, his enemy, were hiding in Gedishim, in high stacks of Sa'orim. And if he burnt the Gedishim, he would get rid of the Pelishtim. He would finish off his enemy. But the problem is, Gedishim Sel Yisrael, it belonged to someone else. Mahu lahatzel atzmai b'maman shel chaverei. Instead of tulips, it was Gedishim. But David had a shaila, can I damage Yenim's pruta to save the life of myself and Klal Yisrael? And the response, believe it or not, was, Asa lahatzel atzmai b'maman shel chaverei. Avalat to melech, and a melech has special privileges. You're allowed to do what's necessary for your melucha. But as the Mechaba Paskin in Shin Nun Tes Siv Dalid, on a regular situation, afilu b'sakanas maves, you can't take someone's money to save your life. Now, of course, the Mechaba says you must save your life. And the bus driver must drive over the tulips. And if it's in a shaila, in a Mechama, you have to destroy the sa'irim. So you have to do it, amanas l'shalem. The point is that you have no doubt about it. You have to save your life, even a Yenim's money. But you have to be willing to pay. You can't say, I'm bekuach nefesh is doicha, chayshemish b'chas v'shalom. If you have any time, you look in the Mamshik and Yeridei, Shin Mem Zayin, Shin Mem Ches, and the Binyan Tzion, and Aleph Kuf Samach Zayin, Til Tes, and Beis Kuf Ayin, they discuss the Havana of this. In other words, you can't say, I want to be very frum, I'm not going to damage his tools, I'm going over the cliff. That's Ritzicha. It's, in theory, someone's money is not doicha bikuach nefesh. But you have an option. Damage the item and pay for it. You'll say, wait a minute, if this is true, so we have a new Yarg Vayavat Sam Tish. Now we not only have a Girai Shvichas Damim, but now Gezel is Yarg Vayavar. So that's a good question. The Gilya Marsha in Yeridei Kufnan Zayin quotes a Tosefta, and you look in the Shalmi in the end of Shemayin Shratzim, that seems to say Enechanami. Gezel, in theory, is also Yarg Vayavar. Now, why do I keep on stressing theory? Because in practice, you have to save lives, even if it damages someone else's money. But you have to do it on Manas L'Shalim. You have to pay, so then Lamaisi, you're not damaging someone else's property. But what is most striking, the whole thing seems so strange. You mean, in theory, I have to not damage the tulips because it's not doiche bekuach nefesh? How do you understand that? So I found something amazing. The Levush, Talmud of the Ramah, in Shin Nun Tes Siv Dalid, explains this halacha in a very simple way. And he says, the Gemara says in Bava Kama Daf Kuf Yutes, based on psukim, Hagoizel shava pruta kilo noitel nishmasei. If Reuven takes from Shimon his money, even a penny, it's like he stole his life. And the Gemara has psukim. Now this is not a mussaf move. This is Gepaskin in Shin Chayshim Mishpat, Shin Nun Tes Siv Gimel. Goizel chavere shava pruta kilo noitel nafshei. Oy bazoi zok the levush. Let's think. If you damage his tulips, you're taking his neshama, his pruta. If he drives over the cliff, he's taking his own life. Zok the levush, my chazi di dami di dach sumuk tvei. Do you hear? Someone's pruta is someone's life. You want to save your life on the expense of his life? Who said that's correct? This is a little bit about Yenim's pruta. And therefore we have a big problem. Can I wear his tallis without rishus? Can I take his coat without rishus? It's Yenim's pruta. It's shel shleim das gazlim. You'll say, wait a minute, but tallis is a mitzvah. You're allowed to do a mitzvah without rishus. Not pashut. The Aruch HaShulchan in Archaim Siman Yudalet Sif Yud Beis, although the Shulchan Aruch says that you're allowed to use someone's towels without rishus, because nichei le'inish l'mevet mitzvah b'moinei, Zok the Aruch HaShulchan, in our times, people are much more mefunakim, they're much more finicky. They don't want you to use their tallis, they don't need your dandruff, your lice, your sweat. And he says, better, if there's no other tallis, not to use someone else's tallis, daven without a tallis. Because people are makbid now. Again, you have to know the mitzias of today, but he's saying that mitzvah doesn't justify taking something without rishus. So now the shaila is, what do I do? I have no coat, I have no tallis, I have no hat. Can I take it without rishus? So you might say, wait a second. I know whose coat this is. He's a little tzefloigen, he's my good friend. I am 100% certain he would let me take the hat or tallis without reshus. Can I say that since I know he would give me reshus, it's as if he gave me reshus? So that we all remember the first thing we learned in Gemara. There's a concept of yesh shaloi midas, loy havi yiyush, that even though you're certain it will be miyayish, unless there's an actual yiyush, you can't create a yiyush. And Tosfos in Bava Metzia, Daf Chav Beis, says the same is true regarding taking someone's chayfetz. Actually, the story was a few Amoraim came to a bustani, came to a paradise, and the worker was mechaber them with Paris, and Mar Zutra did not want to eat because he had no reshus. The balabas would be overjoyed that Gedol Yisrael ate his Paris, but if he didn't give reshus b'poyel, says Tosfos, yesh shaloi midas loy have yish. And the Tosfos, and that's the sheet of the Rosh Hagoyis Ashri and the Mordechai, you can't eat someone's Paris even if you're 100% certain that he would give you reshus, unless he actually gave you reshus. Now I do know the Shach in Shin Nun Chesif Katan Aleph says Lulu de Bestapina. I would say differently, but don't forget Tosfos, the Rosh Hagoyis Ashri, Mordechai argue. The Shach himself says Lulu de Bestapina from Tosfos, and the Ktsois in Reish Test, the Sif Katan Hey says Allah is like Tosfos, not like the Shach. And if you have any doubt, the Rav Shulchan Aruch in Hilchos Metzia, Perik Aleph, Halacha Dalid, says Afilu Boraloi, that Yismechu v'yagilu me'avosam, and he's reyoi kenafshay, he would be so happy if he ate his Paris. You can't eat his Paris unless he gave you reshus. Yish shalai midas lo have yish, and reshus shalai midas is not considered reshus. And the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch and Kuf Pei Beis, Sif Yud Beis quotes this verbatim. So now we have somewhat of an issue. How can I use his hat, tallis, coat, whatever? It's a yish shalai midas lo have yish. So what comes to mind is the following suggestion. Listen, I'm not going over and using someone's hat. He took my hat and left me his. He took my coat and left me his. I'm a victim. Why can't I use his coat? In other words, if someone took mine, I'll take his. So I must remind you, Nekama is not a heta, it's an issa. He took mine, I could take his, Vush state. But there's much more than that. And there's a Gemara in Bava Basra Daf Mem Vav Amud Aleph. Nischalfu le'kelim b'kelim beveisa uman. If someone gave him his tallis to be cleaned or his shoes to fix or whatever it is, and there was a mix-up, someone took yours and you have his, you're allowed to use the item without reshus. But the next halacha, bebeisa aval bebeisa hamishta, if someone went to a shalom zacha and he put down the coat in the back room together with 25 other black coats, and of course his coat got mixed up, then you can't use someone else's coat. Frag the Gemara, what's the chiluk ratio say for beis uman? Why is it different than beis aval, beis mishta? So the Gemara explains a very fine chiluk. Regularly, Zok Tosfos, whenever someone took yours, you can't take his. The regular halacha is this chalfu kelim, you can't take his because you have no reshus. Shal shalai midas gazlan. But a beisa uman, when you gave it into a repair shop or a cleaner's, so we could assume that you gave the bailam reshus to even sell the tallis to make money for you, because you need money. So if you gave the bailam reshus to sell the tallis, certainly someone else could use the tallis without reshus. In other words, as Tosfos stresses clearly, the regular halacha is the chalfu kelim is also to use someone else's chayfetz. It's a simple shlosh midas. But in the exceptional case of an uman, where you gave him reshus to sell it, then the other person could use it. And the Gemara even limits it further. If you said, here's your tallis, then there's no het of uman. A bunch of conditions, you look at it, but I could say this unequivocally, the heta of uman does not apply in our times. When you give in a suit to the cleaners or a tallis or a shoe to the shoemaker, you don't give him reshus to sell it if need be. And that's why all the poskim cross the board say, today nischalfu kelim any place, by a shalom zacha, by a chasen in a shul, a tallis, is the regular halacha of kuf lamed vav chayshim mishpat tziv beis, nischalfu lekelev, lo yishtamish behem. Why? It's a regular din of shal shalai midas gazlan. You'll say, but wait a second. He took my tallis, so he's the Goslin. So why can I take my tallis back? So the Rav had you in mind if you said that. Zok the Rav in the end of Hilchos Gezela, in Hilchos Gezela Sif Lamed, Misha is Chalfu, you can't use his. Sheri Afim Chaveri Mishtamish B'Shaloi, Harezik a Goizim and a Goslin. So you're a Goinif and a Ganav. No big yichus. Because he stole, you're allowed to steal? Now I saw an incredible letter, the Chazinish, the Heilige Chazinish, in the Zigeres, Chelik Beis, Kuf Nun Hey. Apparently someone came to talk to the Chazinish, and he left, he took the Chazinish's cane instead of taking his own. So now the Chazinish was basically, homebound, he couldn't go without a cane. To use someone else's cane, Chas v'shalom. So the Chazinish writes a letter, and listen to this godless. Yetivna, please be kind to me to allow me to use your cane because it got mixed up and I need a cane. Now, I don't know about you, but if someone would come to my house and I would give him my time, I would say, not only you stole my time, you stole my cane, give it right back. But the Chazanish says, please, the cane got confused. So the tzidkis of the story is not that the Chazanish didn't use the cane. That's a Beferish Gemara. That's a Schalful Akela. The way the Chazanish looked at it with great Kvoid Habriya is like, it got confused, but this is the Yisoid. If someone exchanged an item with someone else and you have the item left, you can't use it, a Beferish Gemara. The only question is there any tzad to be makel? Again, it's a freezing winter day, you have no coat, it's about to daven nilu, you have no tallis, mincha, you have no hat. These shaylas happen all the time. So this is a challenging question because the starting point is a Gemara and a Mechaba beles chaylik. No one argues. So I'd like to suggest the following. If it got exchanged, the marshal, I got someone else's shirt in the cleaners and someone else got mine. No, there's no troublemaker. Two innocent victims. Then don't use it. But let's see the case of the coat. Someone took my coat. I'm not going to call him a ganef because he's an iceberg. He's a troublemaker. But he left me without a coat. Why can't I use his coat? The Gemara says Nischalfu Kelev is also. Maybe it's Nischalfu Kelev means either Gemara is talking to the ganef or troublemaker. You took his coat on me after Shachas. You're about to go to Mincha. You say, it's not my coat. Can I wear his coat? So Gemara, no, don't touch his coat. Maybe that's what the Gemara is talking. Or Nischalfu means when there are two victims. The cleaner's made a mistake. So I have his shirt, he has my shirt, so we can't use it. But if I'm the victim, he took my coat, I have no other coat, maybe it's muta. And I found in the Emes Yaakov, Rabbi Yaakov Sefer, Chayshemish with Kufla Medvav. Now again, Rabbi Yaakov wrote his Sefer, but these are ha'oris that people added. It's supposed to be, reliable, but it's not Rabbi Yankov's Ksav Yad. But they quote that Rabbi Yaakov was asked, someone took my hat or my tallis. So since Adam Muad La'olam and the other person considered a Ganef, I could take his tallis as Tashlumin for Geneva. That's what Rabbi Yaakov writes. Now, it's very brief. I imagine Rabbi Yaakov understood it more like I explained. The Gemara is talking about two victims, or the Ganef himself can use it further. But apparently Rabbi Yaakov held if you're a victim and the troublemaker took your tallis and you have no other tallis, you could use his. Now, this is what it says there. But I must tell you, first of all, the Rav Shulchan Aruch said Beferish is no such heter. The Chazanish obviously didn't hold to that. But what to me is a chisi lahav, and the whole premise to call the other person a ganef is not pashut. The Machne Ephraim in Hilchos Gezela, Simon Zayin writes, if someone took an item by mistake, he doesn't have a din of Geneva. Ganef is b'mezid. Now, what's the nafkamina? I'll tell you. Rav Voslan Chelik Vav Reish Lamed Ches has a shayla that is pretty common. I took your item by mistake, okay, and then I lost it. I lost it. It was an oynis. Someone took it stole it out of my house. I took it out of mistake, and someone took it. Oynis. So, Dr. Vosna, if you hold ganef b'shoigig has a din of a ganef, I'm chayiv to pay of oinsim. If I'm not a ganef, then oynis I'm potter. And Rav Vosna quotes this Machne Ephraim that ganef b'oinis is not considered. Ganef b'shoigig is not considered a ganef, and I'm potter for the item that was nenas. So the whole premise to call the troublemaker a ganef is not poshut. But Rabbi say there is an extremely important yesod that's mamish ma'asim b'chol yom. So let's try to clarify this once and for all. The Aruch HaShulchan in Choshen Mishpah, the end of Kuf Lamed of our Siman, after saying that it's chalfu kelev is asking in a Gemara, he writes matter of factly the minig in Bekaimas HaGedolos that there's so many, a big multitude of people coming, and people change min olim el yoinim, the boots, sometimes in shtivel in Yiddish, people change the boots that they wore. No one is makpid. You're allowed to use the other ones. A new heta, place where rabbim gather, and you exchange your boots. You're allowed to use the other person's boots. Now the Aruch HaShulchan earlier in Hilchas Pesach, listen to this, the end of Tov Nun Tes. Apparently in those days, many people baked matzahs at the same time in one matzah oven. And sometimes it happened that I might get his matzah and he gets mine. So the Aruch HaShulchan, you're allowed to take someone else's matzah because it's an umdana that people don't mind you take his, I take yours, as long as we end up with matzah. So you're talking about matzah, there's a din of matzah gezula, and the Aruch HaShulchan assumes there's an umdana. If it gets confused, you could use his. So we see a chiddush nifla of the Aruch HaShulchan that although the Gemara says the chalfu kelev is asa, but for some reason today there's no issa because no one minds. Now the only question is, what is the Aruch HaShulchan talking about? Is this a general klal that any item that is exchanged today you're allowed to use it and keep it because no one minds? What changed from times of the Gemara? What's more logical, the Aruch HaShulchan is talking about items that are identical. I'll give you a few examples we can relate to. You went to shul and you put your totes, large rubbers. There must be 500,000 totes large in Brooklyn alone. Right? They all look the same, unless you have very holy rubbers, but they're all the same. Or the shena coat, large coat, or things that they're all a totes umbrella, they're all the same. So even if it's not mine, but it's all the same. I saw the Shermatzon Malacha in Kuf Pei Beis Tezayin says, if you swap umbrellas, no one minds, it's all the same umbrellas. But is he saying tallis and coat and hat and everything? I don't see it in the Aruch HaShulchan. But Rav Moshe in Chelikei Siman Tes Sif Cotton Zayin discussed someone that changed, that his coat was exchanged with someone else's. Rav Moshe quotes the Aruch HaShulchan and he says, it's lav dafka in the Aruch HaShulchan's time, it's in our times, and lav dafka boots, even coats, any item, because no one minds if their items are exchanged. Rav Vozna in Chelik Vav Reish Lamed Ches discussed someone swapped hats, and he quotes the Aruch HaShulchan. So, but I could just say what Rav Moshe and Rav Vozna understood the Aruch HaShulchan to mean, a new hete bizman hazeh, nischalfu kelev, nobody minds. Now I wonder out loud, what changed? Are we less bigger tzaddikim in times of the Gemara? Are we less mefunakim in times of the Gemara? So I first thought maybe the key word is misasvim. When you come to a place that there's a big multitude of people, so people are more generous, things get confused. But it's not true, because the Gemara speaks about Beis Ovel and Beis Mishta. That was also a place of Rabbi misasvim. So, I don't know, but I think next time you go to a chasana and you have 10 people at a table, make a survey. So how many people don't mind if someone wears your coat, your hat, your tallis? I don't know if that's the Metzias. The Minchas Peter Me'arik in Choshen Mishpah Shinun Tes Sif Aleph says, if most people don't mind but you mind, then someone can use your item without rishus. So I can only say the following. The Aruch HaShulchan, at least where Moshe and Rav Oz understood, seem to have a sweeping heta, bizman hazeh, nobody minds. Now, if that's true, you have a heta. But again, leizachisi lahavin, is that true in the Metzias? But there seems to be a more practical heta, and this negeya in many, many situations. Let's say my coat was taken, and I don't know the whereabouts. There's only one coat there. Then I understand I can't take his coat and use it forever. But maybe just to get home, to use it once, and again, I'm 100% certain that the troublemaker who took my coat does not want me to walk home in 11 below zero, the wind chill factor during the winter. Or I should daven Elu without a tallis. So it's an umdana gemura that the real owner would let me use the item at least once b'shas hatchak. And guess what? The Rav Shulchan Aruch in Hilchos She'ela Sif Hey says this, not a Gabi Nischalfu, even a bigger chiddush. If you need someone safer and you're 110% certain, and not just 110% certain that he lets you use it, you're allowed to use without rishus because you know this person would let. Now this is shocking, because we said earlier the Rav says that even if you have a very, very close friendship, you would be so happy if he ate your payers. It's awesome. Kushel shleimi das gazlanu. And here the Rav says if you know it's mutter, he lets you, it's mutter. So I saw a beautiful shtickle in Imre Yaakov on the Rav Shulchan Aruch Amud Kufla Medalid, and he says the chiluk is obvious. The case of the Rav, the first case, Taisus and Chav Beis, was talking about eating someone's peiros without rishus. That's hanosh sheyesh bo kiloi. That's not using, that's consuming. So even though you're certain he would let, but that's a pretty steep use. It's not being returned. But to use it once and there's no loss, there's no hefsid, so the person would definitely let, you're allowed to use it without rishus. And he proves it from a third Rav in Hilchos Metzia Sif Chav Ches, where the Rav says you're allowed to use without rishus, and Kunchas Achron explains because the Keren Kayemes. But he goes a step further. He says, let's put this in perspective. Someone took my tallis and left me his, or my coat and left me his. They're about to daven the Elah or have to go home in a freezing cold winter. It's an umdana 110% that the Bailam wants me to use it. So it's a hanash she'ein ba kiloi. It's an umdana gemura nan sahadi she'ein dugmasa. Therefore, he says you can rely on the Rav, you could use it without rishus. Or better yet, you do have rishus. It's an umdana gemura and it's a shayal birishus. And he says, I'll tell you more so, but listen to this. Even if it's not 100% certain, but then again, the Gemara said the uman, you're allowed to use without rishus, because since he gave rishus to sell it, probably he gave rishus someone else should use it. There the lashon of the Rosh is Shema. Teretz is when something looks good, you can be makel. No, this case, he took your coat. He's a troublemaker. I'm a victim. So what he's saying is when I'm the victim and I'm only using it once, it's a shoyel bedas, birishus. I also found he also adds at the end, plus you could throw in the Aruch HaShulchan that today is different, but Lamaisa, if he's stuck without a coat, there is a heter to walk home with someone else's coat. Of course, you have to bring it back as soon as you can, because otherwise the person will come back, not find his coat, and you're going to start a vicious cycle. Rav Sternbuch in the Tshuvas in Chelik Gimel, in Chelik Vav, Siman Reish Nun Reish Peiches, he says the difference between maskim or roitza, kedarke, very lamdish, but he has the same yesod. If someone took your thing, there's definitely not just a maskim, but a roitza, and you're allowed to use it without rishus. The Puchacha in Kesav HaKadoshim on our sim in Chayshemish, but Kufla Medvav, a little more machmir. You see, he's not making like the Aruch HaShulchan, and he says, but if it's a shas hatchak, and the Bailam would want, no, you could use it, but he throws in a line, b'makam acha kasafti oidais basa gan v'gnoi ve'ein lahakol. Now, what's he referring to? This is an incredible Gemara in Brachas Tafheya Med Beis, where the Gemara says that Rav Huna suffered a loss, and they told him, you know why you suffered a loss, that his wine became vinegar? Because he didn't pay his worker. He goes, I didn't pay my worker? The workers cheated me. They should pay me. And of course I didn't pay them. So they told him, you're right, but basa gan v'gnoi. Rashi explained, if you do something that looks like Geneva, it has an effect. Now, it wasn't Geneva. He was doing what's right. So the B'chachi, even though he's mekel mi'ikad din, but he's skeptical because doing a ma'aseh Geneva leaves a scar. It leaves a bad effect. The Chazon Ish in the Mai, Perek Zayin Sivkot and Hey, and listen to this, where the Mechaben Shulchan Aruch, based on Yerushalmi Paskins, you're allowed to use a davar mu'ut without rishus. You're allowed to take a tissue out of someone's box without rishus. Davar mu'ut, no one minds. But, Zok the Yerushalmi, alt midas chasidus, it's asa. Chazon Ish wonders, midas chasidus, it's asa? Make up your mind, mutar asa. So the Chazon Ish, Lamaisa, if you margle yourself to take something without rishus, you might go further. That's a form of bas gan v'ganoiv. So I definitely feel that if you could avoid taking someone's item without rishus, avada you should. But if there's no other choice, we have either the Aruch HaShulchan's heta that it's like that people don't mind bisman hazeh. We have this new heta of the Rab that using it once ein ba kiloi is mutter, and hopefully we won't have the effect of basagan v'ganoiv. But then there's another klal, which I believe is a mitzvah farsim, because again, I think everybody has a problem. They found an Aveda, or they got something, they don't know what to do with it. It's already 3 years, 2 years. What do I do with it? So here we come to an extremely important yesod, because here's the question. Let's say I was at tzaddik. Someone took my coat, I didn't touch his coat, I left his coat there. I hope that he's going to come and exchange it. No, this happened in Tafshin Pei. I left my coat there. Now it's winter, Tafshin Pei Aleph. His coat is still sitting there. Ein kol ve'ein oina. What should I do now? If he didn't come in within a year, then the chance of either he's sefloig and doesn't realize, or doesn't know where to retrace his tracks. But I'm not getting back my coat. What should I do? So pashta is the same halacha. It's awesome. So here we come to again a yesod that's mamish could save a lot of agmas nefesh from Yidden. We know the first thing we learned al Gemara Yinglach, that if you have an Aveda that no one claimed, Munach Achiyav Eliyahu, which is Mechabin Reish Samach Zayin Tezvav, both the Sma and the Goyin say it's a pasuk in the Torah. Vasafta el Toich Beisecha, hold on to it. Okay. The question is, in the olden days, people didn't lose items so quickly, and if they did, they looked for the items. Today we live in a very affluent society. You don't look for it, you lose it. I know personally of a camp director. He said, I have a garage full of Avedas in camp. Am I mechuyev to rent a different garage? He puts up signs that no one comes. Ask any person that has a moisid, a mikveh, a shul, a yeshiva. It's mamish ein soif. So it's a munach. You're going to have a warehouse. And the emes, they say the Brisker, when he moved from Brisk to Rishalayim, he brought all the rubbers that people left by his father, Rab Chaim. He yarshin the munachs, a Brisker munach. I know that I saw the stipler Kayidu B'Seif Yamav. He had a box of pens on his desk. And if people came to him, he couldn't hear. You had to write your kvittel, and they left the pens on the table, and he didn't want to keep it. So he had a munach box of pens. But the shaila is there, what do you do if you have not a box of pens, but you have a warehouse of munach? So there's a pliyadika yisoid, which is based on a Gemara. The Gemara says a chiddush, which I know you're not going to believe, but the Gemara says in Bava Metzia Chav Tes, every item you find that does not belong to you, you have to keep it until your owner becomes, except tefillin. If you find someone's tefillin, you can wear it right away. It belongs to someone else. If it comes that you found my tefillin, sure, you'll give him the money. He wants his tefillin. No, tefillin, they're all the same. No one cares, my tefillin, your tefillin. Just give me the money, I'll buy a new pair of tefillin. And that's the way the Mechaba Paskins, Reish Samach Zayin Chaf Aleph, and the Sma explains, if you find my coat, I want my coat, I don't want your coat. But tefillin, they're all identical. Zokte Minchas Alozah in Chelik Dalet Simentes, Hadova Yafli, Kosher Lahelmai, Bisman Hazet, Punkt Faker, tefillin, people are makbid at this ksav and this type of hiddur and this type of chumrah. So the yisoid hadover is, if you find an item that someone lost and you are certain he doesn't care if you give him back the same item, a new item, or the money value, then you could keep it. Tefillin is the muster. Navos, tefillin changed. Zogt ich sam soif in a tshuva chayshe mishpat kuv chav beis ma'is shahaya a misharsis. A cleaning lady left her jewelry by a balabas and fled, whatever the reason was, and now the balabas had an item that wasn't his. Munach. So Chassam Sofer writes, shots up how much the jewelry was worth, write it down in a place you'll have it for the rest of your life. If the misharsis ever comes back to claim it, you'll give her the value of the jewelry. Munach, you're not allowed to use it. That's because the person wants back his item. But jewelry, they'll give back the money and they'll buy new jewelry. It's all the same. So the Samsaif is learning Munach is only when the item is irreplaceable. I'll give you an example. You find someone's his sentimental value, pictures or whatever it is, a trophy, a award, so you can't replace them. But most items today are replaceable. So the Samsaif says this, Rav Moshe Choshen Mishpat Beis Mem Hey, the Menchazitchen Ches, the end of Kuf Mem Vav, Rav Shlomo Zalman, in the Sefer HaShavah, Zabed Kalacha, and Rav Sternbuch and Gimel, Tov, Samach Daled, all say that today is a different world. Almost all items are replaceable. So what does that mean? That means like follows. When you have a chiv of munach, you have to put up a sign. That they want the item. If no one comes, ein kol ve'ein oina, so shots up how much the value is worth. You found a coat. It has this siman and that siman. It's approximately this amount of dollars, and be generous because probably no one's going to come, don't worry. Write it down someplace, not on a piece of scrap paper, it's going to be in the garbage, but write it down someplace that you're going to save, L'oirech Yamim. Rav Sternbuch in Chelik Gimel Tov Samach Daled says, write it in the first page of Masechet Bava Metzia Gemara. Because that you won't lose, you won't throw out, and you'll know where to look for it. He doesn't say Bava Metzia, but that was my idea rather, because here I says Masechet Brachot, I think Bava Metzia is a better idea. But what's the pshat? If someone comes, he'll get back the full value. Now, once you did that, the item is yours. You can either use it, sell it, or throw it out. It's up to you. Because this is what I call the munach alternative. He's getting back his item, the value, without a kapeda. Now, if you want to keep the item, my first suggestion is write your name in it. If we all write our names in the items, these things won't happen. The problem is you don't write your name. So step one is write your name in it. Then you could use it. So this is what I call the munach alternative, that basically an item that's not yours, you're allowed to use it, sell it, or throw it out. So Mamela, if then you come back the next winter, the coat is still there, so treat it like an Aveda. And take the coat, Mazel Tov, it's your coat, write your name in it. If the Baal never comes, hey, I have your coat, no problem. I shot up, here's the money, buy a new one. There is a different heta regarding a permanent swap, a change, and this I saw the Pischei Choshen in Perik Dalet, Ha'or Mem Hey explains that if you left it there long enough that the Bailam realized he made exchange and he was miyayish, then you're allowed to keep it, because it's a mutual agreement that if he has your coat and you have his coat and you don't know each other's identity, so right now you have two ganovim. You have his, he has yours. So that's not a very good business to be in. If there's an umdin and gemura that you both want to legitimize your actions, so you're makna your coat to him, he's makna his coat to you, and shalom al Yisrael. It's either two ganovim or two elachayidin. So after the time that he detected that he has yours, so now you have a very scary situation. Two shol shalem midas gazlin. So there's an umdin and gemura that you let each other use it. Says, what about a surah asa liyadeh? But that's only when there's an aveda, there's a chiv hashavas aveda. You took it by mistake, now as if you're swapping, it's like mechira. And the mechira overrides the surah asa liyadeh. And he proves this very conclusively from our Gemara, that the Gemara says you're allowed to assume that he gave it to the cleaners to sell it, if it was a case of Uman. This case is much more sensible that people don't want to remain a Ghana if they want to swap. So his discussion is, if you could assume the person realized he made a mistake, you're allowed to keep it forever. And the umdan is, if you have yours, if you have mine, I have yours, and we will never cross tracks again, we keep each other's, and shalom al Yisrael. He does add, which is a little problematic, but if the items are so identical that you could assume the other person didn't notice that he exchanged it, then there's no umdan gemura. That's a shel shlei midas. That's a yir shlei midas. So the truth is, in that case, I would guess if they're so identical, then you might have derech shulchan's heta. Because if it's two exact items, so who cares? Taka, no one cares. We both have the same totes, large rubbers, or totes umbrella, so who cares? But this is very relieving. The fact is that people don't mind after a while because there's no other choice. He has my coat and I have his coat. What am I going to do? Now I saw in the Sefer Meishe Balacha, that's a Bechil Talbus Sefer Zechron Levrach Heli Beis on the Taf Ayin Gimel. He has also such a shayla. You have someone's coat for the longest time. So he goes, if you want to be from, take the coat, give it to a friend of yours as the Matana Gemura. So the friend has no issa of isur asli yadeh. He'll give it back to you, and then you could use it. I thought that was a nice idea. But then I saw Rabbi Shlomo Zalman and say, Hashavas Havei Kalach Amid Payalef. He says, don't, he doesn't quote, and he says, don't do that eitz of giving it to someone else, because then you're identifying yourself as a ganef that's giving it to someone else. You don't want to be a ganef. So I'm not sure that's a great eitz. The best eitz is just to assume there's an umdana gemura. There is one more tzad lahakol, which is also a mitzvah gedol lafarsim, and that is, did you ever wonder why one of the most commonly asked shilas to any rav is Hashavas Haveda? Why do we have shuls and moisters and camps with a bursting closets and warehouses of Avedas? So the teretz is, like I told you earlier, today people don't look for Avedas. I invite you to come to a camp on closing day, after all the buses pulled out, take a tour of the bunkhouses. You will see a coal boy of anything and everything left hefker. The boys know it. Food, clothing, hats, suit bags. It's a pachat pchodim. It looks like a variety store. You get anything you need there. And everybody knows when you come, if you leave it there, it's hefker. People don't. I once spoke here, I said in first year, tell your children if they lose something in camp, they should look for it. And everybody started laughing. I said, it's not a joke. I lost my hat, get me a new one. Sure, no problem, it's delivered. Now, Minsky Rebbe is a chayin levrach. It bothered him that people didn't have a sensitivity. So he told the building manager, give me all the hats and coats that have names that have become hefker, and I'll take care of it. And he decided to call every bacher in and give him a chinuch. And the manal was beside himself. This pastor for Rebbe to do that, but he was more of a mechanech than a Rebbe, and he wanted to give a chinuch. You lost the hat. It's your name in it. Why don't you look for it? It's something that we need a chinuch, but lav kol adam zaychul lekach. And you look at a moised, you look at a yeshiva at the end of his man, the oitze b'farshim, they have, each one is $45, a few hundred, if not thousands of dollars a svar. So what do you do? Does a camp menayel have to rent a garage to make a munach? Does he have to make a munach alternative and start selling it? So, Gedoyle Yisrael, Rav Moshe, Chelik Beis, Mem Hey, the Mincha Zitzka I mentioned earlier, the Shevet Alevi, Chelik Teshin, Ches, Rav Chaim Bezalman, all said there has to be an alternative that makes sense, that's practical. And that is very simply that a Moshe puts up a sign that's right in front of, when you walk into the Moshe, everybody sees, any item that's left over 30 days becomes the hefker or the property of the Moshe. They could word it in any way they want, but it has to be that it's noticeable to anybody who enters. And basically, if after 30 days the item is left, even though it has a name and a phone number, it is considered hefker, and the Moshe could either sell it, give it away, include it in their oitzas farm, or throw it out, whatever is applicable. But you can't overburden moistus with a mikvah. How many mikvah bags they have after a month? Now, the emes is that works even by nischalfu. If the moisid has a policy, after 30 days, anything left is hefker. So his coat that he left from last year winter is hefker. So you could take it. In fact, I saw in that safe, was asked the following shaila. The yeshiva had a policy, it becomes oitzas from the yeshiva. And they took an item and they stamped it yeshiva property. Someone said, it's my item, it has his phone number and address, and the Gabbai gave it back. And you have no right to give it back. It's not the Gabbais, it's the yeshivas. So this really depends on the yeshiva's or the moistest understanding. Some of the yeshiva are happy if you take it back. Just don't leave it here. But Lamaisa, this is the Eitzah, not only for Avedis, but also for exchanged items. Again, let's say my coat was taken and he left his coat there a month ago. So after a month, the coat is hefker. So if the shul says, take it, gesundheit, I could take it. Now the only issue I had, Rav Moshe, in that tshuva, he says that, and I saw the Pischei Choshen at the end of Siv Dalet says this also, but let's say there's a chance that someone from outside came in only once from the back door and didn't see the sign. So how could you keep the chayvitz? Maybe the person didn't see the maidah. So Moshe says, you're right. If he didn't see the maidah, it doesn't work. But you don't have to be chosh that an outsider punt left this item, and you could go on with the takana as mentioned. The Pischei Choshen also wonders about that yachid that maybe didn't see the sign. But I must tell you, today, in the end of Tavshin Pei Aleph, where it has become such a widespread takana, everybody knows. I'll give you a mashal. Someone left his shirt in the cleaners after the time that it says in the ticket. If you left it, it becomes, ownerless. So even though he didn't read the ticket, too bad on you. You come into a cleaners, you gave it, you got a ticket, you don't want to read it, so don't read it. But that's the Tanai. If it's well known that every moised has this ongoing takana, that it's hefker after 30 or 60 days, whatever it is, then even though you didn't see it, it's understood. You don't have to see a sign, don't write graffiti on the walls. So don't litter our moisted with your items. And I talk to him, this in Karel, it's in the Sefer Hashav's Vedic Halacha. It seems he says, even if he didn't see a maidah, but if it's accepted universally that moistas have this takana, then it'll be mutter even without a person actually seeing it. It's like almost like part of the agreement. You come into the moisid with specific, well-known conditions. Now, Lamaisa, this is an important point to mention, that if someone comes in and left it, it becomes hefker. So clearly, you lost your coat a month ago and other coat is there, if it's hefker, you could take that as a replacement for your coat. Now I want to just add a few more points, assorted shilas about our sugya. We have this today quite often, that people get someone else's mail. Now today, because they're using a lot of computers, so there's a code, and very often you get someone else's mail. So the truth is, putting it back in the mailbox is not going to help, because it comes right back to you. Because the mail, it reads the computerized code. Someone told he put it back in the mailbox 4 times, and it came back to his house 4 times. So it's not you're wasting time. So we have to be thankful to Hashem that we have a mitzvah of Shabbos Aveda. If there's an address, then take out time for a mitzvah deraisa, call up the person and say, Rabbi, I have your mail. Now here's a chiddush maybe people don't know, but it's pashit. There's no chiyuv on you, the finder, to deliver the mail to the person that it's his mail. You're not mechuyev to be a mailman. The mitzvah of Shabbos Aveda is to notify him that he lost it, and derech bal aveda lachzer acha avedas. As I state, Rav Moshe in the Tshuva, and Rabbi Yasher and the Chazon Ish is quoted that you have to notify him that you have it, and he has to come. Now very often say, throw it out, it's junk mail. You say, it's a bill. He goes, yeah, I know, that's to throw it out for sure. But if he says throw it out, throw it out. If he doesn't come after X amount of time, so then you talk allowed to throw it out. But you have to at least notify him that you have it. Ma'is Shahaya, someone got a grocery delivery on his doorstep. It was must have been a small store. No name of the grocery. A box, like in a banana box, they filled up the groceries, and his address. It was a mistake. What do you do with it? Munach is going to bring mold. So here we have, besides the Munach alternative, we also have a tour towards the end of Reish Samach Zayin, the Shach, and Sivkot and Zayin, Tezayin, and Reish Samach Zayin says this beferish, that Paris, there's no din of Munach, sell it right away. Or better yet, in our terms, use it right away. Write down, I got a delivery, approximately $100. If someone comes to my house claiming that delivery, I will give them the money, but you aschein. What's more of an issue, you went to the fruit store, you bought a bag of fruits, then you went to this farm store, and you went home taking your fruit bag, and you came home that it was someone else's bakery bag. You have no idea whose it is. You ran back to the store, and your fruit is still there, and you have now fruit of yours and his mezainis. What do you do with that bag? Mezainis is not yours. To put it down is an avla, because maybe he came back and so it wasn't there, and you took his item. So now you're giving the storekeeper your headache? So the only eights would be to put up a sign in the store that I have, if you lost the bakery item on this and this day, please call me. Then you have the shots of how much it's worth. You could use the bakery goods, and if someone claims it, hopefully, you'll give it back to him. But stam to give it to the owner of the store is an avla. You picked it up, you took it home. Im natal lo yachzir. Someone told me he found money in his pocket. Usually people take money from your pocket. Here, someone put money. What happened? Very posh. In the yeshiva, there's around 250 black jackets in the coat room. Someone put money in his pocket, but it really was someone else's pocket. So this could be, this is first of all, the makom is a siman. And also, if the money combination was a rare combination, could be the minion is a siman. But at the end of the day, this is a clear-cut case of Motzah Mois. You put up a sign right away, money found in my pocket, come and claim it. If the person says, I lost $127, and there's a right combination, fine. If no one claims it, so you write down in your Sechta Bav Metzia, I found on Aleph Parsha Shlach $127 in my pocket in yeshiva so-and-so. If someone ever claims it, I will give back the money, but Shuas Chen. I mentioned this in the yeshiva Friday, and one of the Rabbim told me a mavaldik story. He once found over $1,000 in Lakewood Yeshiva. It was wrapped in a way that it was clearly a mashulach, and he put up a sign, he would spend money, mefarsim it, and no one claimed it. L'maisra, Forsheim told him this is definitely a siman of the amount of money, and he still has the money. But my spilus was that he told me he wrote a note to himself, and he put it in it together with his wife's ksuba. And so he reminded me that, just in case Chali doesn't live till Mashiach, he wants his Yarshim to realize there's a mitzvah. He has someone else's money. I mean, the Yerushalayim was outstanding, but this is the point. You have someone else's money. It's not a hefker. You could make the Munach alternative, but it has to have a kiyum to it. The Ben Ish Chai, I'm not sure in what context, but in Teitzei, Kiseitze, Ois Yud, if someone took your coat b'meizid, b'mered, you're allowed to take his. Now he writes, why did he take it b'mered? Because your coat was better than his. So he left it. So I don't know, but he says, if he took it b'mered, you could take his. Now that must be, even though Greinu Maganav is Pata, that might be a Gvias Tashlumin of the Geneva. But that's Baruch Hashem very rare, if not unprecedented. Very common, a person left an item on a table or lost an item in an area, and he comes back, it looks like his, but he has no siman. Do you have a tviyas ayin? Oichet nicht. Also, what do? So, if it's nervin, so nervin is not a suffix, take it. But I'm talking about it's not nervin. He has no tviyas ayin, he has no siman. So the Minchas Gitzin Chele Gimel Siman Yud Zayin has a shadow regarding he left a towel in the mikveh, and he came back a while later. It looks like his, but he can't swear in the court of law that it's his. So he says the makom is not a siman because everybody has mikvahs every towels in the mikvah. But he says a beautiful word. He says that from our taz, in our siman, he says if someone was nischalef, he's better off than an aveda. Why? If you find an aveda, you don't know whose it is, but one thing I know, it's not yours. To keep it, you have to be very sure you're allowed to keep it. Here, pakert. I left a towel in this mikveh. I can't say this is mine. Maybe it's nischalef, maybe not. But the starting point is you had a towel exactly like this. So the suffix is in your favor. So he says basically you could keep the towel if no one came in the interim and could hope that's yours and you don't have to worry. The Pischei Choshid and Aveda, the end of Perek Gimel, and again in the end of Perek Dalet, is even more makel, and he says even if it's a suffix, maybe someone left it, he says basically, since the starting point was your item, you could keep it. Ma'isa Shahaya, someone got a shirt from the cleaners and he knows it's not his shirt. How does he know? Because there are initials on the cuff, and it's not his. So he went back to the cleaners, and the cleaner says, I'm sorry, I don't have your shirt. So give me back that one. Because no, I'm not giving back my shirt, this shirt until I get back my shirt. So the cleaner said, what do you mean? But this is not your shirt. So he was mechaven to a Trumas Hadeshim. In Siman Shin Yutes, he writes, Mamash Shala about a Goyish cleaners, which is no chilik, but Yiddish people. And he says, I don't even have to bring a raya to this, but if someone took yours and you have someone else's, you can't say, I'm not giving it back until I get mine. He says, you can't keep a shirt as a hostage. If he doesn't have yours, but you have his, give him back his. So charge the cleaners, but you can't keep someone else's shirt as leverage because you're missing yours. So that's Pashat Kipshutai. If someone's shirt were exchanged, he has to give it back, it's not his. What's with his shirt? Charge the cleaners, say Kapitel Tilim, but you can't keep someone else's shirt. He has his initials on the shirt. The only shaila is if Lamaisa, the cleaner says, listen, I don't have your shirts, but I have shirts here that are laying here for months. So that tak is a real hefker. It belongs to the cleaners. He wants to give it to you as a matana, and you take it as payment, gesund heit. If the agreement is that it's a hefker, then you could take it. What was beautiful to me is the question is, someone had a shirt that he knows wasn't his, and he left it there, but didn't want to take it. He left it there for a while. After Yiyush, he decided to use it. So Zakta Taz, after Yiyush, you could say, you could definitely keep it. After Yiyush, why not? Frag the K'tzai Sachayshin and Sifkat and Beis on the Taz. What do you mean after Yiyush you could keep it? Isura Asli Yadeh. Zakta Buchach and Kesef HaKadoshim, I could defend the Taz very simply. When is there a din Isura Asli Yadeh if either he's a Ganif or he's a Moitza Veda? Here it was given to him the wrong shirt. He's not a Ganif or a Moitza Veda. What is he? A Nischalef. There's no din of Isura Asli Yadeh by a Nischalef. And that's why the Taz says, if something is Nischalef, a good idea, leave it there. If let's say your coat was taken, and his coat is there, don't take it. Or if you took it, keep it where it is, wait for years, wait for 30-day hefker period, and then you could take the other person's tallis or coat, whatever it is, because that would be a din of, there's no din of surah asli yadi. What's really a shver shaila is, you ran out for a moment right before Ne'ilah, you put your towels down, you came out of the bathroom, and your tallis is not there, someone's tallis is there. You can't go into the shul, please give me back my tallis, because they're about to start Ne'ilah. What do? So worse yet, this is a tallis she'ula, which is, you're not even mekayim the mitzvah. So the emes is, it's very embarrassing to daven. If you're a grandfather, kanayin har, and you're davening without a tallis and Ne'ilah, something looks very modern, you're not going to have much kavanah. So we have a few tzaddim to make. We have the Aruch HaShulchan, our Moshe's heta, that today in Ischalef is mutter. We have Rabbi Yankov's heta, if you're a victim, it's mutter. The Buchacha, that B'shas Atchak is mutter. The Imre Yaakov, that using it temporarily is mutter. And Rav Sternbuch Tak in Chelik Vav, the end of Reish Peiches, regarding a tallis mamish, he says to use it temporarily is okay. But Lamaisa, I think it's even more than that. Because let's realize, if you don't use his tallis, so then he's using your tallis b'geneva. So you're being mezaka, another yid with geneva, mamish, by Ne'ilah. Geneva b'toy zakapanim. So why don't you just make a better agreement that we're moichel each other? So that might be a good sat to say that we're moichel each other and we both could use the other person's tallis. But I just want to add, the Aruch HaShulchan that I mentioned earlier in Hilchos Sitz Yudal Yud Beis says that people are makbid, you shouldn't use a tallis without rishus. So maybe tallis is worse than a regular aveda. More so, the Shulchan Atar, the Kamaran in Sim Yudal writes emphatically, people are makbid today that they don't want others to use their tallis. Even though the times of the Shulchan Aruch was mutter, today is different. The Rav Chaim Falaji, and this I saw the Eliezer Yud Beis, Simon Zayin says, why do we have the mitzvah of tallis, tzitzis? Because Avram was very nizar in Geneva, the Chut Atzrei Chanal. So what kind of panim you steal for a tallis? So the Aruch HaShulchan is better daven without a tallis. Right, I understand. So I'm just telling you, if you could quickly get a shul's tallis, so then you have a tallis shall call, you can make a bracha on it, because it's a new bracha, if it's a new ma'isa tifa, if it's still early enough. To take yanims is a suffix, but lemaisa better than davening out of tallis, we have enough to be saimacham. Switching hats, Rav Vosna said is mutter, even though again people are makbid about hats, but again Rav Vosna is mekel, and the Aruch HaShulchan is mekel, mi'ani, mo'ani. If someone, I have this child in the camp in yeshiva, they made a laundry, and they looked at someone else's clothing in their laundry, someone else's sack. So if people don't look for suits and hats, they're not looking for sacks. So what I told them is the yeshiva has to have a policy, put everything in a lost and found, and even though in Hilchas HaShavas HaBei you're not yoitza, that's reckless. You can't hang up a watch in the shul's bulletin board because then a person will take it. You're not yoitza HaShavas HaBei putting it in a lost and found. But the chance of people looking for shirts or for socks is below zero, so that's hechrashti, that would be okay. The last point I want to mention is, which I think is a good idea, halavai we should institute this as well, a shul, any makom tziburi should have an exchange policy. Basically, if you put coats in the coat room or anything in this shul or yeshiva, whatever it is, and it's exchanged, allow the person to use it until you could rechange what you took. I'll say, who am I to make this takana? It's an old takana. The Mishnah is in Sukkah Daf Mem Beis Amid Beis by the Dal of Minim when he brought the Beis HaMikdash. Kalabol Yodai could keep it. You're talking about lulav hagazel, but it's mutter. What's the pshat? The Chashukhan says like Abi matzah. Matzah is possible. The Teretz is an umdin gemur. It's fine. And I think what Moshe means that in Chelik Kesim and Tes, and that would solve problems. And I'll tell you hot off the press. This past Thursday night, I know for a fact, someone's by a chassid took place, and after the chuppah, the kala said to the chassid, "This is not my ring." She picked out the kedusha ring, she fitted it, and this doesn't fit after the chuppah. So they called up the jewelry store. He opened the store special, and he realized that they had exchanged chasana rings. So in other words, the kedusha was not chal, and they had to go get the new ring. They had to make another kedushin. Granted, the poskim paskin that the pictures were not ma'akiv. So, but basically, had they had an exchange policy, everything would work. A good talk to you all.
Beautiful shir, beautiful shir. B'shem English, I'd like to thank Rabbi Smith for the wonderful shir. Rabbi said we need help to sponsor the shir, and please call English 718-851-8651. We had the last few weeks now so many parashas in Klal Yisrael, and there's appeal all over the world helping the stolen killer with the tragedy of over 200 people injured in Yisrael. Whoever didn't participate, whoever wants to help more, we still need a lot of help for the Chayli Yisrael. Please participate. Call English 718-851-8651 or email isd@yeshiva.com that you want to be mishtativ, or come here. There's a credit card machine on the beam. You can be mishtativ. In this chus, everybody should be geholfen mit gesund, being gesund and stark. Protection من الشمام رفويس يشوس لون الخيسرال آمين. أبغى من كاشم من تقول بقى زاك صار فيك هبل متميز وشنا ما نرغب من ستك يعقل تبى يعدي. آمين.